The world and environment of Dark Souls 1 is one of the most memorable in the gaming history. Lordran is the place that fascinated many players, with its vast variety of places and their interconnectivity. The main things that attract players to the Souls series are the hard difficulty and bosses, and possibly the big variety of builds and weapons. But if you're more like me, your favorite thing in the game is when you hear this sound. This is the sound that plays every time you enter in a new area. Every place has a unique feeling to it. If you know a thing or two about Dark Souls lore, you are aware that a lot of the story can be discovered by just looking around you. And this is what we're gonna do today. We are going to explore every area in Dark Souls 1, the history behind it, and the NPC and enemies that can be found there. So, let's begin. The first area of the game is the Undead Asylum, a small prison far into the north made for the undead where they will wait until the end of the world. The prison seems to be located high up in the mountains, and it was made with the purpose to keep the undead away from the world. The asylum has multiple narrow hallways with lots of cells on each side, with many of them being broken. Here we can see lots of hollows, former humans who lost their wills and purpose and now just wander aimlessly, unable to die. At the front of the asylum there is a church-like structures where the asylum demon can be found. This demon comes from the lost Izalith, and it was tasked to make sure no undead escapes from the asylum. Exactly underneath there is another demon. The room is filled with skeletons, meaning many undead tried to leave, but none of them were successful. At the exit of the prison there is a narrow cliff where a small crow nest can be found. That's trade items. At the very end of the cliff there is a nest of a giant crow that also has a nest in Lordran and travels with its eggs between them. If the player revisits this place there are some small changes. With the asylum demon dead because of the player, the undead started to wander all over the place, and 2 black knights can be seen now. The Black Knights are a special elite of soldier created by Gwyn in order to defeat the demons from the lost Izalith. It is said that the color black is the result of burning to ashes after Gwyn linked the first flame himself. It is not clear why they are here, maybe because of the demons or because an undead escaped the asylum or many other things. They also seem to guard a strange wooden door that will be relevant later. Now is the time to take the big crow and visit the land of the gods, Lordran. Firelink Shrine is the main hub of the game, where the most NPC can be found, like Big Hat Logan, Knights of Katarina, Crestfallen Soldier, and so on. Here you can see the ruins of what is possibly to be an old shrine. In the front of the ruins there's a withered tree and a bonfire with a coiled sword on it. This one is actually special because it's enhanced by a firekeeper, a person that looks after a bonfire. This one lies in a small sand just under the bonfire, and she also doesn't talk because her tongue is impure. In the ruins of the shrine there is a statue that likely represents a goddess, and in the middle there is a small pool of water, and after the 2 bells of awakening are ringed, the primordial serpent called Frampt will appear. The primordial serpents are very long creatures with teeth and big nose and mustaches. These serpents are actually pretty old, maybe as old as the ancient dragons. At the top of the shrine there is the giant crow nest, and it seems that this is where it spends most of its time. On the left there is a small graveyard filled with tombstones, and the remains of skeletons that had come from the nearby catacombs. The Firelink Shrine is connected to many other locations, and from here we can even see the giant tree from Blighttown. From now we will take the path from the right across the tall bridge where a few giant rats live. At the end of the bridge we reach the Undead Burg. The Undead Burg is a town where humans used to live. In the past this was probably a pilgrimage resting place on their way to Anor Londo, but after Gwyn put the dark sign on them, the town had fallen into ruins and only hollow remained there. The Undead Burg is split in 2 sections. The upper section is the much nicer place. Here probably lived the higher class of the military. At some point there was a series of revolts, urban fights and death. By looking around we can see the damage done. Barricades, broken doors, broken ladders, and so on. Just above there is a bridge and 2 towers. At the end of the bridge on the right of the statue that likely represent another goddess or the same one, there is another broken statue representing the first son of Gwyn, who betrayed his father and ally with the dragons. And this started the revolution because the humans used to worship the first son. Multiple soldiers were sent to hold back the humans from reaching the Undead Parish, and the result is what we can see right now. Only a few undead merchants managed to keep their sanity. On the top of the bridge, a red dragon made its home and he burns everyone who tries to cross the bridge. At the other side of the bridge we can find our best friend Solaire, and one of the most beautiful views in all Lordran. After taking a good look, we will gonna go to the left tower. At the bottom of the tower we can find Havel locked away, but in reality this is probably not Havel, because he drops the Havel ring, a ring that is given to his followers to be able to wear his armor, but Havel could wear the full set without any problem. At the very top of the tower is the Taurus demon, another demon that had come from the lost Izalith. In the right tower, after a very long ladder, we arrive at the lower section of the Undead Burg, which is filled with lots of human houses and narrow roads. Now only thieves remain here that robbed the place while the revolution took place, and we can see even a pile of corpses being burned. Here it is also the place where the Capra demon lives with his dogs, and he also holds the key to the depths. But we will go in that place later. Right now we will gonna move to the left of the statue on the bridge. The entrance of the Undead Parish is guarded by a couple of soldiers and an armored boar that come from the archives, probably. We can even spot the archives from here. The place is also blocked by a giant gate, but despite all of this, many undead still manage to enter. In the middle of the area there is a giant building surrounded by many trees. Here it is an elevator that takes us to the Firelink Shrine, and a corpse of a firekeeper who likely died praying to the statue or something like that. At the next floor of the building there is a channeler from the archives that controls the hollows around him. He was probably tasked to guard the bell that was situated at the top of the roof. Also there are two gargoyles protecting the bell from the rumored chosen undead. Near the building there is a tower connected by a bridge that leads to other two locations, the Sands Fortress and Darkroot Garden. In the tower, Andre of Astora can be found, who forges weapons for everyone who is in need. In the next room there is a Titanid demon, a stone creature without a leg and head. Unlike the other demons, this type arose from several Titan slabs after the death of a nameless blacksmith's deity, meaning that the Titanid slabs transform into these demons. After the demon is defeated, we can enter into the Darkroot Garden. But before we can discuss it, we first need to talk about what was before. Sanctuary Garden is a small rounded pit in the middle of the forest. Here lives the Sanctuary Guardian, a manticore that shoots lightning attacks. It is hostile to everyone who steps into his territory. Oolacile Sanctuary is a place filled with little statues likely representing the humans from Oolacile. Oolacile was a town inhabited by powerful human mages, and it was built in the forest that we talked about earlier. At the sanctum we can find only an old living mushroom called Elizabeth, who is said to be the godmother of Princess Dusk, the princess of Oolacile. The Royal Wood is a forest that is home of the Trent Gardener. Those tree-like creatures takes care of the royal wood vegetation, like the trees, plants, flowers and so on. This place is also guarded by the Stone Guardians, giant knights full of armor made of stone. Around here also roams one of the last ancient dragons known as Calamith. He is quite small in comparison with the other ancient dragons, and he has a red eye in the middle of his head. Now he occupies the pit where a cascade and a very long ladder are. At the end of the forest there are several holes with bluish smoke coming out from it. Near we can see a Colosseum and a weird guy with unusual clothing that had come from another world. In the Colosseum there is Artorias, one of the Gwyn Four Knights, who was sent here to take care of the Abyss, brought by the humans from Oolacile, but he failed and now he is just a shadow of his former self. Connected to the Colosseum there is a tower, and at the top of it we can find another Knight of Gwyn, Hawkeye Goth. He used to hunt dragons with his giant bow, but right now he only makes carvings. After Artorias dies we can encounter the third knight, which is Syrian, a very skilled assassin. She made a small grave for Artorias that will be moved later. The Oolacile Township is the main area here. This is where all the mages used to live. In the past, this town was filled with houses, hallways and magic elevators. The mages were very powerful. Here we can find the most powerful spells in the game. The town seems to be built vertically. The more you go into the heart of the town, the deeper you are. In the deepest point there is a prison, and the prisoners were likely tortured. We will get there immediately. The structures of Oolacile change when the primordial serpent Cath appear. He encouraged the humans to embrace their inner darkness and to dig up the grave of the primeval man. When they did that, the primeval man was transformed into a beast that unleashed the abyss. The abyss corrupted and destroyed Oolacile and transformed all humans into these horrific creatures. And now the town is covered in these dark blue stains or veins, and everything seems to get much worse the deeper we'll go. When we arrive at the prison, there is a cell filled with chains that likely were used to torture the prisoner there. One of the walls is broken, and behind it there is a giant hole so dark that you can barely see. There is not too much to say about the Chasm of the Abyss. This place is all covered in pure dark. Even if you use a lantern you can barely see. Here we can find a few corrupted humans, but primarily here are these black floating ghosts called humanity phantoms. This is the purest form of a human, and they spawn from the abyss. Around here we can find Sif, Artorias' dog, who was left here with his shield to protect him from the ghosts. At the bottom we can find the source of the abyss, Manus, the former primeval man and the father of the abyss, a grotesque and deformed creature. In his area we can spot a human hole that belonged to him before he was transformed. All those events happened decades ago, and now it is time to go back to the present. So before that we were at the Darkroot Garden. Formerly exact here was the Royal Woods. Because the mages were gone, the place began to overgrown with vegetation. The threat gardener also had gone through some overgrown process because they lost their purpose, and now they are just some walking bushes called ants. The stone guardians also lost their purpose, and now they are just laying on the ground and they wake up only if you're getting too close to them. There are two paths we can go from here. One leads us to a bridge where the moonlight butterfly can be found, a creature made by Sid the Scaleless, and probably escaped from there, or Sif just let it fly. At the other side of the bridge there is a statue of a blacksmith that looks exactly like Andre. On the other path we can walk around the exact same area as the Royal Woods. Even the small buildings are here. Here multiple hunter resides led by Alvida, a big cat with 3 much bigger childs. Not too far away we can encounter the mushroom people, probably the heirs of Elizabeth. They are just chilling. At the end we can spot the same bridge that leads to the Oolacile Sanctum, but now is the grave of Artorias, guarded by his loyal dog Sif. Many tried to rob this place, but Sif made sure that no one approaches. Around the area we can see multiple graves and weapons that belongs to the unsuccessful thieves. Behind Artorias' gravestone there is a corpse with the hornet ring, suggesting that Syrian remained here by his side until her last breath. The Darkroot Basin is the area where Calamith was. The cascade, bridge and the ladder are still here, but the whole pit was filled with water over time. Here are a few crystal golems, other creation of Sith. In the lake lives the first of the 2 hydras in the game. Not too much is known about them, only that they are somehow related to the dragons. They even drop a dragon scale upon death. At the far corner of the pit there is a golden golem who imprisoned Princess Dusk, who somehow arrived here. Darkroot Basin is connected to the tower from the Undead Burg in the room where the follower of Havel is. It is also connected with the Darkroot Garden by a path on the wall of the mountains that form over time. The depths is the sewer of the Undead Burg. It's a labyrinth of tunnels filled with, well, water and shit. It is home to many poisonous slimes, rats, giant rats and basilics, lizards with large fake eyes to scare prey and predators. The depths was also built with the purpose to lock those that were banished from the Undead Burg, destined to live here in this dangerous flooded maze where the sunlight cannot reach. A group of cannibalistic butchers and their dogs also had taken residence here. They probably feed the giant rats with the banished undead. At the bottom there is a large platform where the gaping dragon can be found, a dragon with a giant mouth filled with long teeth. Near this area there are a couple of ramps where all the water drains into the pit connected to the Blighttown. Even the inhabitants of the depths that live in this dangerous and toxic place are more scared of what is in Blighttown. They built this massive iron door to keep them separate from whoever might come from down there. There are two entrances to Blighttown. One is from Valley of Drakes and the other one from the depths. Blighttown is synonymous with poison, infection and swamp. There are two sections. The first one is a multitude of wooden platforms and ladders put together, but they are not very stable. To speculate a bit, this wooden path that goes from the bottom all the way up was possibly made by the inhabitants of the Blighttown. They built this from the wood scraps coming from the sewers or from the other ruins, and put together to form a path to escape from this hellish place. But because of the locked iron door and the affected barbarians, that was not possible and they remained there. At the lowest level there is a ground filled with poisonous mud that slows your movement, and the view is full of some sorts of pillars that support the outskirts of the kingdom. The inhabitants of this place are mostly poisonous insects like big mosquitoes, leeches, crag spiders and this grow parasitic wall hugger. The more humans one, if you can call them like that, had become so infected to the point that had become mutilated or monstrous like the infected barbarians. At the left of the Blighttown there is a very large spider nest made by the Daughter of Chaos. Formerly here was the second Bell of Awakening, but now is fully covered in spiderweb. In the interior of the nest the walls are covered with eggs. Not too far there is a large area where we can meet with Quelaag, the one responsible for this, a half-human, half-lava spider wielding a fire sword. In the next room there is the Bell of Awakening, and just below, behind an invisible wall, there is a Firekeeper, Quelaag's sister, who because of the eggs cannot move from here. She is guarded by an egg carrier, a human infected with parasites that grew multiple eggs on their back, and now they are barely able to move, and if you kill one of them, from the eggs will burst the vile maggots. The Firekeeper or the Fair Lady tried to help them with the infection, but she got infected herself, and that's how she got to this state. In the right corner of Blighttown there is a large ancient tree. After a couple of invisible walls we reach the interior of the tree, which is quite deep. The interior is filled with coiled branches that goes everywhere. The tree also has something similar to floors, separated by platforms made by tangled branches and roots. Here there are also the annoying basilics. At the last floor there is a little mushroom forest that covers the base of the tree. In this little forest lives the mushroom people and they are quite friendly, or at least they don't mind us. So here we are, a gate into the past, the last memory of what was before. The Ash Lake, the most legendary location in all From Software games. Before Gwyn had conquered the world, it was a different place. It was covered with giant trees, fogs and dragons. In the nearby lake there is the second Hydra, strengthening the connection between them and the dragons. It is quite likely that this lake is the place of birth for those Hydras. Right now there is only a small piece of sand that can be explored and a couple of man-eater shell, a living shell that lures prey into his mouth. And we can see that it had quite some victims. At the end of a very long and narrow path we can meet with the last living ancient dragon, at the base of an old hollow tree, the Everlasting Dragon. A very large dragon with hair and 4 wings, similar to the ones from the trailer. Even though he looks like the ancient dragons, the description of the dragon sword that comes from his tail says, "Come from the tail of a stone dragon of Ash Lake, descendant of the ancient dragons." So it's quite unlikely that this is actually a pure ancient dragon. Sen's fortress, situated in the front of Andrew's tower, was locked by a giant door until the 2 bells of awakening will be ringed, at which moment a giant will pull a very heavy chain and open the door. Sen's fortress was made with the purpose to test the ones who wish to enter into the city of gods. It was built in the same period as Anor Londo. This place is filled with traps and mechanism, and also guarded by many man-serpents, working as guardians. At the lower section there are 4 titanid demons that will kill anyone who has fallen here. At each level there are these very narrow breaches, and along them are swinging axes. There is also a system that pushes giant boulders brought by a giant all over the fortress to crush the intruders. One of the rooms has multiple hanging cages where they capture the intruders, and one of them is Big Head Logan, a powerful mage that also failed to pass the fortress. All over the place we can see these silver knight statues. Either this is the place where they made them from Anor Londo, or in the past this was the training grounds of the Silver Knights. At the top of the fortress we can find another couple of knights that tried to pass and failed, and 3 giants that work here. At the end of the Sen's fortress is the final guardian, the Iron Golem. He was created by the gods of Anor Londo by fusing the power of a soul with the bones of the dragons, and formed the core of this giant. After his defeat, the door to Anor Londo will finally open, or it used to open. After the flame almost faded, the door was destroyed, and only this demon will transport you to the other side. Okay, so this might be actually the most memorable and beautiful place in all Soul series. The fan favorite Anor Londo. The city of gods created by Lord Gwyn after he conquered and recreated the entire world forever. An enormous city built on the top of the mountain. I could spend at least an hour talking about the view and the layout, but we will just focus on the main places. From here we can gaze at the almost fading flame hidden between the clouds. Why are some demons here in the City of Gods? Well, I have no idea. At the end of the stairways there are 3 rooms. 2 of them are in the honor of Orenstein, the last Gwyn Knight, and the Executioner Smough, both of them being guarded by sentinels. The 3rd room is where we can find another Firekeeper, a member of the Dark Moon Blades. In the front there is an elevator tower that is connected to 3 locations and is guarded by 2 gargoyles. On the left is a church where there are a couple of painting guardians that make sure no one interacts with the massive painting. Here there is a statue of Guinevere, the daughter of Gwyn. You can take me later. In here we also find the corpse of a knight similar to the ones in the Sen's fortress, and a broken window. It is likely that the Iron Golem threw him so far that he landed here and died. Just below the church there is a small monument in the name of Lord Gwyn and his Silver Knights. Now let's move our focus to the giant cathedral, the place where Lord Gwyn used to live. Behind the giant door there is a very large hallways, and at each side there is a network of rooms and bedrooms, with lots of Silver Knights and 2 very annoying ones. There is also a room filled with dragon heads, trophies collected from the war by the Silver Knights. At the left wing of the cathedral there is a giant blacksmith, and here is also the Hawk Ring, so this guy might be related to him. In the front of the hallways is the throne room, and it is guarded by Orenstein and Smough. This room is decorated with Silver Knight statues and a monument of Gwyn and his child at that time, Guinevere and his renegated son. His statue was removed after his betrayal. Just above is Guinevere's chamber where she can be found. Or is she? This whole place is just an illusion. In reality, the fire is almost gone and Anor Londo is mostly covered in darkness. The sentinels are also just illusion, and instead the only real enemies are the Dark Moon Blades, a covenant made by the last son of Gwyn, Gwyndolin, a powerful mage who can be found behind the monument at the church, where he can make a very long hallway. And at the end of that hallway there is also a small monument in the name of, well, I don't really know. After we acquire the Lord Vessel, 3 new paths are open, but before that... The Painted World was created with the purpose to banish everything that the gods of Anor Londo fears. Mainly one thing. The painting was made by Ariamis and was locked using a doll, and the doll was hidden away. The Painted World is on the top of a mountain and surrounded by cliffs. The entire place is covered in snow, and all buildings here are just old ruins. Here lives all sorts of creatures: booty crow demons, hollows, tower knights, even an undead dragon. But the thing that the gods feared the most is situated at the end of the bridge at the Colosseum Tower, Oolacile, a half-human, half-dragon, and the leader of this whole place. She was conceived likely by Guinevere and Sith, and because of her dragon genes and abilities, she was locked here forever. The Duke Archives is the place that was given to Sith after he helped Gwyn in the war. The archive is situated in the highest peak of the mountain, not too far from the main castle. The entrance is watched by 2 fanged boars. Behind them there is an elevator that brings us to the library. Here we met with the Channeler and also with the undead crystal soldiers. These undeads are test subjects for Sith in his search for immortality. Because he was born without scales, he had to resort to an artificial method, and he found a primordial crystal. He made tons of experiments on the undeads, covering their whole body in crystals and making them very durable. The crystal golem also fits into this category, beings created only from crystals. The channelers are likely the ones who controls them. The library is formed of 2 main sections that are quite similar. Many floors filled with books that contains very valuable knowledge. 2 spirals elevator attached to a stairways are used to reach all the floors in both sections. Above is a tower covered with crystals where usually Sith spent his time. Below he even has a prison guarded by man serpents, with cells built all around between the book shelters. Oh, and also this door. Yeah, it just stands there. Menacingly! The Crystal Cave is the place where either the primordial crystal originated, but it's more likely that Sith hid the crystal here, so nobody will touch his immortality source. Because of the crystal, the entire pit was covered in crystals. Even the trees and all the vegetation around was crystallized. Some of them are even invisible, probably because of how the light refracts or something like that. Besides the crystal golems, here are also the moonlight butterflies. Their original place, perhaps. In the heart of this cave is the primordial crystal, and at the entrance are a couple of man-eater shells, probably brought here by Sith. He's an ancient dragon after all. The catacombs are quite hard to describe. This place is a complete maze, and instead of buildings, the majority of the rooms are just holes dug into the dirt. The catacombs is situated in a massive network of caves, probably not natural, more likely made by skeletons. And it is the place where the dead are just chilling being dead. There are a couple of necromancers that will make sure that the dead are not fully dead, and they will still patrol and guard the area. In terms of aesthetics, this place is a massive grave. Skeleton remains all over the place. Resting place, and also filled with traps like spike statues and flipping bridges. Around the bottom is the 3rd blacksmith, a skeleton that, well, it is not friendly to say the least.
Be gone with you. Spoil my focus.
Here are even these wheel guys. Everyone hates them. Oh, and also patches. Fuck patches. At the end of the catacombs is a very large coffin where Pinwheel studies a way to separate his body because now he is a fusion of 3 people. And the room is filled with books thrown all around the place. The Tomb of Giants is a place that is even much harder to describe. The place, like the Chasm of the Abyss, is completely dark, and if you try to use the light, well, I will not suggest that. Like the name suggests, this is the resting place of the giants, and of course they are only big skeletons of giants, humans or beasts. From here we can spot the lost Izalith, the lava being the only light source here. If you're lucky and manage to avoid patches and find a path into this darkness, we arrive at the same depth level as the Ash Lake, and we can even admire this beautiful place from another angle, although there is not so much to see. In the nearby cave lies baby skeletons, bone towers and pinwheel servants. Around the final cave are many praying skeletons that worship Nito, the Lord of the Dead. His tomb is a cave filled with stalagmites and he is just chilling there in a coffin. His area can also be reached by entering a special coffin and you will be transported here to join Nito's covenant. He just doesn't mind you. Demon Ruins is under Blighttown and can be reached from Quelaag's nests. At the entrance are a couple of egg carriers that prey at the origin place of demons. Well, it is more likely their chilling place. Here lives all sorts of demons like the ones we have seen before. Taurus demon, Capra demon, and also the stone demons and giant worms. The majority of this place is covered in lava, and a big portion comes from the ceaseless discharge. He was the only son of the Witch of Izalith, and he was transformed alongside his family when they tried to recreate the first flame. Now he just sits here watching his sister's dead body. After he's defeated, a big portion of the lava disappears. On the right we can see some very old ruins that have been here probably since the Age of Ancients. Attached to one of the walls is a centipede demon that wakes up if we step in his area just below. The war between Anor Londo and the demons could have taken place around this area. This is how the Black Knights were born. To combat the demons and the lava, a special elite of civil knights were equipped with armor that was fire resistant, and they hunt demons even to this day. In the large building nearby is a demon fire sage, similar to the stray demon, and a couple of chaos maggots, parasitic creatures that attach to the host head. And also there is a magic elevator that can bring us to the Quelaag's nests. At the end of this building we can reach the infamous Lost Izalith, the oldest city we can see in the game. The city seems to be directly below an arch tree, so the entire place is filled with massive tree roots. Besides the roots, the outskirts of the city is full of lava and undead dragon bottoms, remains brought back to life by the Bed of Chaos. There are also a couple of towers, but right now are broken and no longer connected to the city. In the heart of the city lives the Bed of Chaos, the former Witch of Izalith. She used her soul to create another flame and she failed, and instead she was transformed into this flame tree, and from this all demons were born. The Bed of Chaos might be only this bug. The only thing we know for sure is that the witch consciousness is no longer here. As for the name, well, we don't know who exactly was Izalith. Maybe he was a king that lived long before and he probably was related to the witches of Izalith. But as many things, we will never know for sure. The Valley of Drakes is, well, a valley with some drakes on it. It is a narrow valley below the Firelink Shrine connected to a couple of locations. Here lives a few small drakes and an undead dragon, or what is remained from here. His bottom, I think he just dropped in the Lost Izalith. The most interesting thing here is this massive door connected to the new Londo Ruins. Currently locked by some contraptions, because the place is currently flooded and is no longer reachable from here. I saved the saddest location of the game at the end. It is situated exactly below the Firelink Shrine. Formerly it was a great undead city that once held a thriving culture ruled by the four kings that received a piece of Gwyn's souls. But at some point they had met with Kath, the same one from the Oolacile. Kath convinced the four kings to embrace their true nature, and so the abyss was unleashed over New London, a fate similar to Oolacile. Soon after, the place was inhabited by Dark Wraith's knights, creatures with skeleton armor that hunted every living thing, The situation had gone out of hand very quickly, so Gwyn had sent Artorias to deal with this situation, but again the only thing he could do was to flood the entire area even before the innocent could escape, and many died in that day. Right now only the upper section remained. The only inhabitants are the ghosts of the humans that drowned here, and now are just wandering around seeking revenge. This is how the new London transformed into the new Londo Ruins. If you manage to pull the lever and open the door, the water will drain into the Valley of Drakes, and the lower section will be accessible once again. But here we can witness the true tragedy of this place, especially around the gate. The floor is covered with drowned corpses. Piles of corpses can be seen everywhere. Some of the dead even fused together into a massive blob with a giant face on it. The source of the darkness comes from this small tower with a statue on it. In the interior there is a huge drop, and at the bottom is only darkness, even much more than Oolacile. It's just full, completely darkness. Here lives the corrupted four kings, and after their defeat we can also meet Kath here, who still remained here, guiding the next humans. This is the final place, our final stop. The only way to reach this area is by being transported by one of the two primordial serpents, or just by jumping into the hole in the Firelink Shrine. At the entrance there is a ghostly bridge where multiple Silver Knights ghosts pass by. This is the place where the first flame is, and where Gwyn lit himself in order to prolong the Age of Fire. Because of this, the entire area is covered in ash, a side effect of prolonging the flame. The area is filled with pillars and skeleton structure. The pillars also has signs from the wind, something like stalagmites from the ashes. A couple of black knights guards the altar and makes sure that no one messes with this place. In the middle of the altar is Lord Gwyn, or better said, what remained of him, just a hollow husk, still clinging to his obsession about the flame. And this was the story and history of Lordran. If you liked this video, make sure to let me know by leaving a comment or hitting a like. We will also explore the other Souls game in the future, like Dark Souls 2 and 3, and we will see what happens later with the rest of the games, like Sekiro and Elden Ring. No, Elden Ring is too big for that. I will not even try with that, it's just too massive. If you're more interested in this kind of videos, make sure to be subscribed so you'll not miss out. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye, have a good day.